Welcome to DABCC Radio,
where smart people listen.
Virtualization and Cloud Talk.
Featuring cutting-edge solutions from the hottest companies around the globe.
Broadcasting from the DABCC offices in sunny Sarasota, Florida.
Surrounded by computers, books, and Legos.
A Microsoft MVP, Citrix Charter CTP, VMware vExpert.
And your host, Douglas Brown.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 300th episode of DABCC Radio. I can't believe it. We did it. We had 300 episodes. It's a party. Woohoo! Woohoo! And to sort of celebrate the party, what I wanted to do is wanted to bring on some real smart guys, some people that I've really had the great privilege of meeting recently and of knowing for many, many years. So we have Steve Greenberg, and Steve is one of the first guys I met in the Citrix space. Way back in the early days, there was something called the Thin List, and the Thin List was a listserv that allowed you to email into a group, and it went out to all the people that subscribed, and one of the guys that responded almost every time was a gentleman named Steve Greenberg. He's been in this space so long, his company's named Thin Client Computing. He's based down in Scottsdale, Arizona. What do I say about Steve? He's also a CTP Fellow, which means that Citrix has recognized him as one of the best of the best. Just a great guy. And he's on the phone with us. He's on the line on this call with us. We have Christian Drieling, who's one of IGEL's rock stars. This guy is all that and a bag of chips. He is a senior systems engineer. He goes out on a daily basis and installs and troubleshoots and educates and sits in business meetings and technical meetings all about IGEL. And he's also a highly motivated kid that I shouldn't call him a kid. Highly motivated guy that just what a joy it has been to find him at IGEL. Wow. We have Pete Downing. I love Pete. Pete is a great guy all the way around. And he's over at XenTegra, which is one of my favorite consulting companies out there. And Pete comes from Ardent's, believe it or not. It was when I first met him way back in the mid-2000s. And Citrix picked him up, and I was introduced to this guy who was going to teach me what Ardent's was, and that was Pete. And I've known him ever since. He's never disappointed me. One of the sharpest guys I know. Just a great person, too. Fun to hang out with at the bar. And just you're not going to not learn from Pete. And then, of course, Jose. And if you guys have not listened to it, we already did a podcast with Jose at Accelera Solutions talking about, we started talking about IGEL, we started talking about Accelera, then we went on for an hour and 20 minutes just having fun, talking about technology, security, IoT, you name it. I think we talked about light bulbs for a while, too. Really a fun conversation, and we both left going, hey, let's keep it going. But I said, no, after an hour and 20, you got to stop it. So what do I say? But we have these guys on the line. Last week was IGEL's Disrupt In-User Computing Conference in Austin, Texas. And this is the second one we've done this year. We're taking this conference around the world. We started in Bremen, Germany at IGEL's headquarters. We sold out the show, and the buzz there was phenomenal. I received so many amazing emails from the folks saying, gosh, Doug, I can't believe this. I've been doing IGEL for 15 years, and I can't believe what I just saw. I thought I knew it. I can't believe what I just saw. Wow, Doug, this is amazing. The excitement, the feeling that we're on to something big. And this is what I heard over and over, and this is what we're going to talk about today a bit, too. We have one more to go in Australia, and what do I say? With no further ado, let's just dive into it. I brought these guys on to share some of their insights of what they learned about at Disrupt, what they thought was special at Disrupt, and what all this means to all you guys. So with no further ado, let's just dive into my interview, or my roundtable with my geeks from the Geek Speak and some of my dear close friends. Let's get to it, guys. Okay, guys, so you all made it home safe from Austin. That's a very good thing. Now we're going to do a quick little, I don't know about how quick, we're going to do a lively discussion, a recap about Disrupt, and then also maybe pick up on the Geek Speak that we did. So, which is always a lot of fun. If I get you guys on the line, I don't want to just talk about IGEL, but also about everything else that's going on within our EUC community. So, that being said, let's get to it. As always, I like to do introductions first so the folks out there know who they are listening to, and we have a very lively group. So let's get to it. Who do I want to do first? Let's just take it from the top, and let's take Steve. Steve, can you tell us who you are and what do you do?
Hey, Doug, great to be here. I'm Steve Greenberg. I'm based in Scottsdale, Arizona. My company is Thin Client Computing, and we started in 1997, so we celebrated 20-year anniversary. And it's real funny because as that 20th year kind of finished out, it felt like this cycle was coming to an end. But when we all got together at Disrupt, I realized it's just the beginning of an exciting new cycle. So I've been in this game a long time. I've done a lot of high-profile projects, deployed all kinds of Citrix and VMware and thin clients, and looking forward to speaking about that.
You know, Steve, you and I met way back in the 90s. You remember we met on the Thin List?
Absolutely. And then you became our regional systems engineer for Citrix. So then we worked together in person for a while. That was a lot of fun.
I remember that. I remember coming down to visit you for the very first time, and I was all excited. I get to meet the Steve Greenberg, and I was just I was nervous, actually. And I don't get nervous very often, but I was very nervous to meet you and Steve Kaplan, believe it or not. Those were the two guys I really wanted to meet that weren't at Citrix at the time, but those were fun days, man. Those were fun days. So
good times.
I didn't start from the top. I started from the bottom. So we'll work our way up alphabetically, I guess. So Pete, can you tell us who you are and what do you?
Sure. Hey, Doug. Thanks for having me. So my name is Pete Downing. Big shift for me. I'm working over on the partner side at XenTegra. I'm their CTMO. And as you know, I've been in the industry quite a while as well. You and I met back when I was at Ardence, if you can remember that. And I joined Ardence, and then via that I joined Citrix. So I was at Citrix for a pretty good chunk of my career so far. And yep, here I am on the partner side, enjoying life, building cool solutions for my customers, and getting to work with guys like you. So
I remember meeting you. I was so excited because the Ardence stuff was phenomenal, was it not?
Oh yeah, I still love it, and it's still near and dear to my heart. But I'm slowly becoming a believer in MCS. So.
That's cool. That's cool. Jose. And for the listeners, I did a very lively podcast with Jose a couple months ago. So please go back and refer to that. Jose and I went on for an hour and 20 minutes, believe it or not. We stopped the list and we just started having fun, geeking out, talking about tech. So I'm so glad to have you back on, Jose. Can you tell us who you are and a bit about what you do?
Thanks, Doug. Absolutely. So my name is Jose. I'm a practice manager at Accelera Solutions. So I've been at Accelera for about 7 years. And like XenTegra, like Pete was saying, so we're another Citrix partner. We've actually been in business since 2002. So we've been in business for about 16 years now. We've worked with a wide array of customers, commercial customers, federal customers, and we have one of the largest XenApp implementations in the world, supporting 55,000 users worldwide. We're very proud of that. Before I was at Accelera, I was actually on the customer end where I was in charge of both cybersecurity, the support team, and the Citrix environment. So, I'm used to wearing many hats, doing many things. And speaking of many hats, today at Accelera, I'm not only practice manager of our Citrix practice, what we call the workplace practice, I also wear the hat of running our managed services business as well.
Oh, that's cool. I just love managed services. Maybe we'll talk a bit about that and where everyone sees that thing going.
Sure.
Steve, you remember the good old ASP days?
Yes, it's funny. Everything comes around in cycles, and that was the first attempt at cloud, but it was a little too early.
It was just the idea was right. Back in those days, Citrix was a great. I always like to say, and I'm proud of it, that we were sort of the crazy ones that believed that saw something, saw a promise, and jumped on it, right? But a lot of things back in the 90s, in the early 2000s, were great ideas, but they just weren't ready. It wasn't that it was a bad idea. It's just the technology, the world wasn't ready for it, right?
Well, it was also mindset. So back in those days, the concept of hosting for customers, what we call cloud now, was good, but it still brought the enterprise mindset. It took the Facebooks, Googles, eBays to kind of develop the commodity, low cost, high scale, web scale concept and approach to make cloud viable. So like you say, it was just ahead of its time, but the idea was right on.
You got it. Good point. We'll touch upon that in a bit. And then the last but not least, my one of my favorite people in the whole wide world nowadays, Christian, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what are you doing?
Thanks for being here. So hello, Doug. My name is Christian Drieling. I'm based in Germany, so I'm working for IGEL headquarters in Bremen in northern Germany. I think probably we already figured out that I was just born, as most of you started in IT, so I'm born into a world of VDI, and I skipped all the meta frame and presentation servers and all this stuff. But now I'm more than 10 years in IT, mostly in end-user computing. So that's, I think, why I'm here.
Perfect. And Christian is a senior SE at IGEL and works a lot with me on some of the things we're doing, and I'm just having a blast working with this guy. So you mentioned he's young, but he comes with just a tremendous amount of experience too, so which is quite great, and just a motivation that's unheard of. I absolutely love it. And he loves it so much that he's actually driving in the middle of Germany right now. So if his audio is not that great, guys, we apologize, but I wanted him to be on. We wanted him to be on. So, and he wanted to be on. So that's just great. Okay, let's get to it, guys.
That's dedication.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get to it. So we all just left Disrupt. We're back in our homes, hopefully, our offices, and we've had time to sort of think about what we saw. Is there anything that out there that you got, or anything at Disrupt that you were introduced you to that surprised you, or anything that you walked away saying, "Wow, this is just really amazing"?
Yeah, Steve here. I would just say the whole thing was just a complete surprise in a positive way and kind of a mind blower in that I've always known IGEL and worked with them and deployed their clients, but it was just kind of like, hey, a thin client, whatever. But this has just been an incredible reboot. It really was disrupting. It was super inspiring, the vision, the technology. And that's what I was saying earlier in the intro, that we're kind of in another big upswing, another cycle where, next gen endpoints is a big deal. So I was just completely unexpectedly blown away and inspired by the whole thing.
Steve, you bring up something interesting, and something that I talk about from time to a lot, actually, and that is the word thin client. I think that the problem with the word thin client is, for anybody that's been around for a period of time, let's say guys like, a lot of us, us, we think of maybe a box that we tried in the 90s or in the early 2000s that might have been slow, chunky, didn't have the management, just sort of sat out. It was cheap. You bought it because it was cheap, right? And in return, you sort of got what you're paid for. And I think when people are being introduced to IGEL, they might have that, that negative connotation in their head, and then they see it, then they experience it, and then they're like, wait a second, this is not a thin client. Is that sort of, do you agree, disagree? What do you...
I actually totally agree. In fact, I had to resign myself to it because, like I said, the company I run, it's been doing this for 20 years. We deployed thousands and thousands of thin clients successfully, but maybe 10, 12, 13 years ago, they started to kind of suck, to be honest with you. And the big guys bought up the independent companies and made very mediocre products, which really, like you're saying, you kind of just got an inferior client. And to be fair to them, it was also the exponential growth and expectation of the internet and video and media. But then clients, as a market, didn't do a great job of keeping up and kind of put a bad taste in the mouth. And around the same time, mobile devices, iPhone, iPad, Android, faster laptops came out, and you just started to expect a richer endpoint experience. So I kind of had to let go of the excitement of thin client for a while because the whole package is awesome, but the endpoint wasn't great. But IGEL's really changed that. And I'm particularly excited that we can come back with that message. I actually don't like the phrase thin client,
Me too.
even though it's the name of my company, because now it's much more. It's kind of like a full-featured secure endpoint. And this whole story you can explain, Doug, about it really being software is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I like to call it a secure access point, a secure endpoint, a modern business operating system. That's sort of the name I'm starting to use nowadays. But depending on who you're talking to, thin client you might have a uphill battle. But once they see it, they get it, and that's that's really great. Anyone else have any?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so very much like Steve, I went through a period where, yes, we talked about thin clients being kind of a key component of VDI, Citrix, what have you, right? Key component, you must have it, right? And then I just kind of stopped talking about it, right? It just started to kind of lose relevance. It really wasn't meeting kind of the end user need as much as they needed they needed to. So we just started kind of just shifting our conversation away from thin clients in general. And, honestly, if you had asked me 3 years ago that, I'd be here talking today about secure managed endpoints, right, from IGEL, and I'd be excited about it, I would be very, very surprised about it. I wouldn't believe you, right? But I think Steve touched on something that I think is true. I think the market is right. The solution is more mature. The user experience is definitely richer. The management experience is richer than it was before. And so we've gone through, I think we were very in love with the idea of mobile devices, right? I think that's what happened here. We got way in love with mobile devices, tablets, so on and so forth, that we kind of lost sight of something that kind of worked, right? And thin clients did work for a while. It's worked for years for a lot of industries, but it hasn't really been very, very prominent from a usability perspective, from an innovation perspective. I mean, the space overall has been dead for a long, long time. And here comes IGEL with their innovative approach to secure managed endpoints, which is what I call them. And now we're talking about it again. I'm excited about it again. My team's excited about it again. So anyway, I think, times have definitely changed. And I think IGEL has kind of reinvigorated a part of the marketplace that's been dead for a long time.
When you guys both mentioned richer endpoints, and did you guys see the what was the driving the video game driving machine that we had set up in the exhibit hall area? Did you guys play with that by chance?
No, I didn't get to. Can you tell me more about it? I mean, I assumed it was a really good responsive experience, but I didn't get a chance to actually operate it.
It was amazing.
I did. It was fun. It was the experience was just unbelievable. There was no lag. You basically had a video game running on a Citrix server being streamed, on the screen via an IGEL thin client, and it was fun. I mean, Jeff and I were having a blast trying to beat each other on our times. So.
Yeah, it was all running through like Pete said, a Citrix server, NVIDIA graphics card in there, and then a UD3. So we didn't even have the big powerful UD6 or UD7, just a typical UD3, hardware-based thin client. And it acted as if you were playing on, a big giant gaming machine. It was truly beautiful. The graphics were perfect. There was no lag. We had the whole thing set up with the steering wheel and pedals and a really nice chair and the whole 9 yards. And people had no clue. Well, we told them, but otherwise they had no clue that was running in a thin environment, right? Really, really showed what you can do today. And then if you can play a video game, well, you can do anything.
Well, that's a perfect example of limitation. So over the years, we would deploy thin clients, and then all of a sudden, some vendor would announce some new streaming media, and then that client could handle it. But you're demonstrating now what we call a thin client. We do want a new name, and maybe we can come up with one in this podcast. Doing high frame rate gaming. There's no harder workload than that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, the video games has definitely, moved the computer hardware space forward over the years. And it's always been one of those things that's been cutting edge, right? So if you can do it on a device like this, well, you can do anything on a device like this. So anybody else have anything else that surprised them or that they took away saying, wow?
Yeah. So this is Pete. Yeah, I got to say everything Jose and Steve has said, I agree 110%. But one of the things that stood out to me was talking to the IGEL customers that were there and how even excited they were with the technology and how passionate they were about the technology. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say the vendors, but you had one vendor in particular that got up on stage and had a great story about how they use your technology, and they've been a long time customer, but they've also helped you guys push the limits of the technology, and you guys listened and pivoted with them. And as an ex-product manager, it was refreshing to see that IGEL is truly invested in their customers, but it was also cool to see how passionate the customers were who were there. And I look forward to next year, because I think the numbers are going to be double what they were this year, and you'll have even more excited customers at the event next year.
Well, hey, Pete, this is Steve. I just wanted to reinforce that, because that was actually one of the biggest takeaways from the event for me, was that exact case study you're talking about. That team that came from a large retailer, international, many endpoints, and not only how they used the IGEL Thin Client to be successful, but how they then customized it and extended the software. It was just an incredible case study that really super excited me, because it's not even, the off-the-shelf product is amazing, but the ability to extend it takes it into whole other areas that are just really impressive.
You got it. And for those listening, the customer in all the entire Disrupt was streamed. So within the show notes, we'll have the links so you can watch the different sessions we're talking about and things like that. But the customer was called Exotica, and they're the makers of they're the owners of Sunglass Hut and Lens Crafters, and those places where you buy anything to put on your eyes, basically around the globe. And they have something like 5,000 different locations and around the globe, and one person manages that entire environment. And the joke at IGEL was when we do this, we have to say 2 people manage it, because nobody believes that one person can manage, tens of thousands of endpoints, in all these different, locations with all these, or tens of thousands of users and, thousands of endpoints in all these locations around the globe. But it's true. And I like the fact that you brought up the integrations, and because that's really the power, one of the powerful pieces of IGEL. Out of the box, it's simple, right? Out of the box, it's easy, but you can even take it farther through the extent the pieces that we have. We have an IMI, which is an API layer, which they're leveraging heavily to do some just phenomenal stuff. So we can play at the small sides, but we can also scale up and allow one guy to manage all that. It was a great session. I actually want to go back and watch that one again.
For me, it was also a really exciting thing that I met the customers from US, and all were telling me exciting stuff about how their life was made easier with IGEL. So I'm telling the IGEL story all over the world, and I tell people, hey, it's easier. It's so easy to manage. It's easy to automate things, all the stuff. But seeing the customers being happy and telling me the stuff that I tell the people all over the world was really amazing to see that it's the truth. It's not only that I see it in my lab, it's real life of customers using it. And what I really enjoyed was sitting together with Carl Webster to start with our IMI API to implement script for documentation of our so there was a lot of exciting stuff going on.
Christian, can you expand upon a bit about what you can do with the IMI and what Mr. Webster is doing with it?
Sure. So we have the API. It's called IGEL Management Interface, and with our IMI, you have access to all information that is stored in our database about our clients and configurations. But also, it's possible to use the REST API to control our UMS and to use the functions of our UMS. For example, to do configuration to the devices and all this stuff. So the idea from Carl at the moment, so you all know Carl, and you know that Carl does a lot of documentation scripting. The idea at the moment is to have a script that you can run and get the whole status of your environment, what is configured on what way. And also, for example, the Exotica guys are really deep into the IMI. So the feature request IMI came from Exotica because they wanted to be able to control all functions of our UMS with scripting with the website and all this stuff. So it's a really, really mighty and powerful tool. Not many customers have it discovered until now, but the guys that are using it are doing amazing stuff.
And one of the things about the IMI, just for the guys listening that might be familiar with IGEL for a while, is in the past the IMI was licensed individually, so you actually had to buy the IMI, which I always found strange. Now, as of February 1st, we changed our licensing, and we're all engineers. We're not going to get into a licensing discussion, but now the IMI will come with certain layers or levels of your licensing. So it's going to be, I think we're going to see a lot more integrations, a lot more amazing things that we're doing that our customers and potential customers can do with this technology. Because I've always said, you give a man a compiler, he can build a world, right? So, and that's definitely the case with the IMI. Okay, so let's switch to. So, is there any? We somewhat talked about this in already, but where do you see thin clients or secure access points? Where do you see a solution like IGEL fitting into the world today?
Well, Doug, this is Steve. I'll take that first, because one of the things that's really jumping out with me is when we talked about thin clients 20 years ago, we were really thinking that you're directing yourself to a server-based computing session, right? But now it's cloud, it's SaaS, it's on-prem, it's off-prem, it's B2B. There's so many resources. So the new use case or identity that I see for these secure endpoints, what I think is so exciting, is they just aggregate everything you need. They can connect to anything and in one simple endpoint. So instead of it being kind of one-to-one, I see it as just a single place, an identity that you can log on and just get to all your stuff regardless of where it is.
From a security perspective, cybersecurity, and I've heard this for the 15 years that I've been in the industry, cybersecurity is only going to be more top of mind. It's going to gain more dollars internally as it becomes more prominent, more sophisticated over time. And I think there's a very compelling story with secure managed endpoints like, IGEL, where they have a low footprint, a small attack surface, right? That can better position customers from a security perspective.
IGEL, where it's going to start fitting in is I look at kind of desktops today in general, and they're becoming commoditized, and so I feel like IT staffs and departments are looking at ways to extend the life of their current investment, whether it's current, thin clients, it's current, PCs, and they're looking at a way to extend it. And where one of my favorite functionalities in the IGEL stack is the universal desktop converter tool. And I feel like you couple that with net new deployments of, new hardware, you can also say, hey, I can take existing investments and convert them into a thin client. And to play into Jose's security, yes, it's also about the endpoint security as well, because let's face it, our users aren't the smartest when it comes to phishing emails or links that they shouldn't click on and things like that. And if you can mitigate that risk a little bit more at the endpoint, it helps create a nice secured. And I don't want to say that IGEL's dumb, but it makes the endpoints dumb, so that they walk up, they click on a link, it connects them into their SaaS app or their Citrix environment or whatnot, and they're able to just do their job and not have to worry about the endpoint. So I think, at the end of the day, I like the universal desktop converter, but end to end, IGEL has a great story, whether you're a contractor with the UD Pocket, and we can talk about that more later, or you're looking to convert an existing investment and get 2 or 3 more years of runway out of that device.
Well, Pete, I'm glad you mentioned that, because over the years I've been doing this, one of the most powerful benefits has been able to reuse the endpoint. I've had multiple large projects like hospitals, financial institutions, where they're sitting down with us and going, hey, we're going to rebuild our environment. This is what we're thinking. We have a PC refresh coming up, and we've been able to just not do the entire PC refresh, right? Now, in those days, it was a little harder. We didn't have the software you're referring to, but IGEL has the ability to just convert a PC, whatever it is, into a fully managed thin client device. That's like miraculous. Like for a lot of organizations, you're just cost avoiding $1, $2, $3 million and tons of manpower to swap all that out and manage it. And now you just turn your device into a managed thin client, literally, with just reflashing the drive. That's an amazing thing. That's really is a game changer. And I'm just really excited to see that concept come around and be so deployable with this software.
I think you guys hit the nail on the head. And for those listening, one of the different, or the big, you'll hear us talk about the UD Pocket and the UDC and the UD3s and all these different acronyms, right? And the one thing to remember is what IGEL sells is a platform with two components, an operating system and a management piece, right? And the operating system was built for that management piece, and the management piece was built for that operating system. The different versions we have, what's different is how you deploy the operating system. So at some point, we have to get the OS onto the device, right? So with the UDC, we want to take the universal device converter, we want to take an existing piece of hardware and convert that into a fully managed endpoint, right? And how do we do that? Well, we just install the operating system onto it. And we have a nice, fancy, easy to use solution for that called the UDC. But once it's installed, it's the same operating system, the same experience, the same settings, configurations, manageability, you name it, that you would get on a UD Pocket or one of our big, fat, thin clients, right? And when I say fat, I mean, like one of our most powerful big boxes. There's no difference. You don't lose functionality, right? What we've done is we've converted that old machine into a modern business operating system. And I think, Steve, you hit the nail on the head. And this is where I'm going in 2018. The operating system, the IGEL solution in today's world, the operating system is not about one thing anymore, right? It's no longer do we connect to Citrix. No, nowadays, we have a little bit of everything, right? And we always have, but we just keep adding stuff to that plate. We have our legacy applications, our Windows applications, right? We have our SaaS applications, and more of those are coming out today. We have our remoting applications and our local applications. We can do all that on IGEL today. And one of the things that excited me that came out of Disrupt is I got to meet with the Frame guys, which I was really looking forward to. And for those who are not familiar with Frame, I can actually take a Windows application and run it in a browser on the IGEL operating system and then centrally manage that, right? I can configure icons on the desktop for the different SaaS applications. We don't have to run those through a Citrix session, right? Or a VMware or Microsoft session. You don't have to run have the user type that in. You can pre-configure all that and then centrally manage it anywhere, anyplace, anytime, right? It's what we've done is the promise and the benefit of what Citrix brings you of anywhere, anyplace, anytime application access, IGEL is brought for the operating system, because we can take that operating system and move it from machine to machine. If I slap in a UD Pocket USB thin drive at my mother's house and boot up into it, I get the same exact settings, configuration, experience as I do on my thin client at home, right? That is the power of what IGEL brings.
Yeah, and Doug, one of the things you're hitting upon, it's kind of subtle, but it's something that a lot of the IT folk who are listening in on this need to understand is understand your soft cost, because there's the cost to acquire the software, the hardware, all your hard costs, but a lot of IT folks that I talk to don't truly understand their soft cost, what it costs to go to a device and fix a problem. What does it cost to manage a Windows device? What does it cost to troubleshoot and for every help desk call that comes in? And when you understand that and then you put it next to IGEL, the light bulb will go on and say, oh, wow, I get it. Now it's all about management, because that's kind of the theme you were saying there is the management is consistent across everything. And you guys, IGEL can do that.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's about the software. And this is what you hear all the time. I get the question constantly, Doug, why did you join IGEL? Well, that answer, or that question's been answered, right? You've seen the success. That's why I joined IGEL. It's because I knew what we were doing was going to be successful, because it's a great solution. Now the big question is, why are you guys having all this success, right? Well, what is the secret to your success, Doug? Well, the secret is in the software. Right? At the end of the day, with an IGEL solution, you get better without buying new. For example, the repurposing old PCs. When we tell this story, and they see the product, they light up the way you guys did at Disrupt, right? The way Steve did. And just, wait a second. This is not and I think, Pete, you said it well, with the sort of the slip of, it's dumb, right? It's not dumb. It's easy, it's simple. It's better. And at the end of the day, the users, that's what they want. They want great experience. So I love it. I really, really love it.
Christian here. What I really want to add is our operating system, and that's what I tell everybody that starts with IGEL and says, okay, this is a Linux. I don't want to use Linux for my end users. What we did here, what the IGEL OS is like you said, a special platform that is designed for the needs of business. So I love to compare it to a television. So the Samsung televisions all have Linux on them, but the operating system that they use is designed for being a television. Nobody's afraid of using a TV and switching the channels and all the stuff. And that's the same about our IGEL operating system. So we designed it that you can easily manage everything that you need, and that you don't have to be afraid about how to configure stuff. So even 802.1x and STP can be configured in 5 minutes with our operating system. Try this on a Ubuntu or whatever. So that's the magic behind our software.
Guys, another question is we brought up the user experience multiple times. We even brought up talking a bit about high definition graphics with the race car game that we had running at Disrupt. And this is a question we get not only within the IGEL space, but within the the EUC space in general. And that is around, when do we use something like an NVIDIA solution? When do we need these type of graphics? Office it doesn't require, but sure does benefit from it. I want to throw this one out to you guys. You guys are the experts here. So if a customer says, do I need this? When is that appropriate?
Well, Doug, this is Steve. One of the things that historically was a no-brainer was 3D, AutoCAD design, mechanical, electronic engineering. We've done a ton of that over the years. And it goes without saying that it requires GPU to be a good experience. But what's happened is that even basic office tools and browsers now want and expect elements of 3D. And it's getting to the point where really good experience pretty much reaches all use cases. Now, if you're just publishing a super flat 2D banking application, you probably don't need it. But, Office and ribbons and browsers are starting to leverage it. And it's becoming much more ubiquitous and important to user experience.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the Microsoft operating system is written to take advantage of GPU hardware acceleration out of the box, right? The legacy kind of window drawing system, all that sort of stuff is gone, right? It's been replaced by this really rich user interface that by default is going to try to leverage a GPU. By us not leveraging a GPU, essentially what we're doing is we're actually having kind of your backend infrastructure work harder at providing the very basic functionality just Windows needs in order to function. I think of this almost like computers back in the early 90s, right? Computers in the early 90s, everyone had, if you had a computer, chances are it was a beige box, right? It was not attractive whatsoever. Nothing inspiring about having a computer like that. Then, mid-90s, we started getting some of these more colorful kind of computers. Remember the iMacs from the mid-90s, right? The ones that look like, Lifesavers or whatever. Those things kind of, people started caring about the end user experience then. And I think that kind of carried over to the end user experience that we get today from our mobile devices, whether it's Android or whatever. Design and usability, many years ago, it was really difficult to quantify, right? What that did for your business. But now that we're over here on the other end, I think end user experience really is the deciding factor of whether or not your project was successful. If the end user does not feel like they have a state-of-the-art computing environment, whatever it may be, your project failed, because in the eyes of that user, you're not giving them anything better than what they have than what they had already. So I think our mindset in general has changed from the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s to now where end user demands are much higher than before. And, whether or not you think that GPU is really going to, that you can quantify that from a monetary perspective, I beg to say that you can quantify that from an end user experience perspective and from user acceptance and whether or not your end users are going to be happy and they're going to have confidence in the solution. I've been doing this for a long time, and I myself have seen projects that have failed, and when they do fail, usually it's user perception. So from my perspective, right, even if you don't have a killer app that's leveraging a GPU of any sort, keep in mind again, the Windows operating system is written to take advantage of hardware accelerated graphics. If you're not leveraging it, that CPU is doing it on behalf of the GPU. So that's taking a hit, right? And then there's the end user experience, / perception of the project and the solution.
Yeah, and then one other thing to add on top of Jose's point is, if you look at Windows 10 inherently is going to add more load to your backend, just because it's graphically intensive with all the different UI elements of Windows 10. And I was recently on a call with NVIDIA, and this one stat stuck out to me. And one of the things that they can help is with user density, and they can increase density by 30% with Windows 10. So if you go at it without graphics, acceleration, you're going to lose about 30% overhead on your various servers where you're targeting Windows 10. Whereas if you leverage graphics acceleration, virtual graphics CPUs, then you're looking at about a 30% increase in density. And the other thing is, the misconception is that, hey, it costs a lot of money to do vGPUs. I mean, if you really bring it down to cost per desktop or cost per app, you're looking at about $6, anywhere between $6 and $2, depending on if you're doing desktop and app. So it's not as costly as people think. And to Jose's point, at what cost are you willing to risk the failure of a product or a project over user experience? And at the end of the day, I don't know if this is a saying, but maybe happy user, happy IT department, right? So we always got to keep our users happy, because at the end of the day, they're customers.
I'm so glad you brought up costs. I actually wrote that down because, engineers were real easy to start throwing in technologies. Oh, you need this and this and this and this. And Doug, what does that cost? Don't worry about it. We're engineers. We don't care, right? But you put it perfectly. And I would like to add something that I was told many, many, many years ago, probably about 20 years ago now. And it's my favorite quote favorite thing I've ever been told. And listen to me now and hear me later. I was sitting in a bar in Northwest Iowa. You guys know the story. You've heard it out of me many times, probably. I was sitting in a bar in Northwest Iowa with a senior engineer that wanted to teach me how to do my job. And he looked at me and he said, Doug, you're a good engineer. You can build a great network. But if the end users don't perceive it's a great network, you will never be a great engineer, end quote. And that changed my life right there. And at the end of the day, what is IT there for? They're there to make a great experience for the user so that they can do their jobs better, so that company can go and sell more product or services or whatever that company does, right? And I think in IT, we forget that with technology. But some technologies are true enablers. And I think that on the GPU side, what these guys are bringing just gives the promise that us old guys had so many years ago, right?
Well, you know what, Doug? We were struggling to just get stuff to work and be performant back in the day. And then we got more powerful servers, and we could get more density and get sessions out there. Then this GPU thing came along, and it seemed like a premium, hey, only for those special people. But, Pete was talking about greater scalability, because when you don't use a GPU, the software wants to do rendering, and so it emulates it. You actually lose scalability without it. But then you look at the baseline. We're all walking around with supercomputers, incredible, tiny little thin laptops with flash storage and local GPUs. I mean, the baseline, the expectation is so much higher than it used to be. You're not even asking for a lot, right? You're just trying to give them the experience they already expect, and that requires a GPU.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of good points here. So having graphic cards in the server-based computing, there's a lot of more reasons today than we had a few years ago. What's really important is with IGEL, so you've seen our setup with the racing setup on our booth. IGEL provides a special codec pack that improves the performance, the hardware acceleration a lot. So if you're playing around with all the high-end graphic stuff, like playing the games, probably that's not the most used use case, but also if you're doing CAD applications, or even if you just want to have an accelerated Windows, please be sure that you have the codec pack on the device and that you have enabled the hardware acceleration so that you will get the whole good experience of it.
Perfect. And guys, I actually did a podcast with the guys that create the codecs. So in IGEL CTO. So I definitely refer back to that podcast for more information on what IGEL's doing with the multimedia codecs and bit that's embedded into the operating system. So on that note, guys, we're about the top of the hour. We want to go ahead and wind this thing down. So if we just want to maybe go around the horn and summarize things. So I'll start off real quick because it's my show. I got to do as I please. I'll start off real quick just by saying thank you to you guys. It's amazing to have you guys in the community. It's amazing the feedback I'm getting from you guys and all of the IGEL community members. And it's just summarizing. And I want to read one quick quote that good old Steve Greenberg sent me because I think I think Steve hit it on the nail on the head. And he says, quote, "It is truly a no-brainer. The premise of a secure, cost-saving endpoint with excellent management capabilities will become the new standard for the endpoint and business computing." And I think that, I should end the show with that because that hits the nail on the head. So thank you so much, Steve, for that.
Yeah, Doug, thanks so much for having us on the show. It's always a fun time. Seriously, I think that if we just kept recording for another hour, we'd still be going at it.
Oh, yeah.
And thanks to IGEL for throwing an awesome conference. I know it was the first time doing this. It was well thought out, very informative. They were able to kind of get this end user computing together in one place, and it just felt so personable, right? It was just a really, really awesome experience. I'm really looking forward to going back out to Disrupt again next year.
Steve, anything to add? Or did I summarize it for you?
Well, it's pretty hard to beat that succinct quote, but I'll just say that I think the promise of what excited us all years ago and that we worked on all these years of, low cost, secure, efficient, elegant solutions, it's back and it's better. And it's just exciting to enter another cycle where the technology is taken off and there's great use cases. I'm just looking to doing awesome projects in the next few years.
We picked a great space, Steve. We really did. It's never going to come to an end. Someday it's just going to be the way everybody computes because it's a better way to compute, right?
Exactly. Well said.
Thank you for having me on today. And, it's hard to follow up the Steve and Jose's comments, but I just want to echo, if you haven't checked out IGEL, definitely take a look because I feel like it's game changer and it's not, like you said, it's not a thin client, it's an OS. And once you start playing with it, the light bulb's going to go on and you're going to say, I get it. So
yeah, I really want to thank you for inviting me to the podcast. And I really, really want to thank all the people that attended the event, because if it would only be Doug and me and some other IGEL guys, it wouldn't be so fun and such a nice experience. So it was really important to see that the event, that people enjoyed the event, and that probably most of the people had really fun to see all this stuff and to learn something new. And so it was really exciting. And I would love to see this next year again.
Well, I think we're going to do it next year. So I sure do hope so. It was amazing. And anytime you can pull off a conference, it's a good deal. And anytime you can pull off one the first year as well as they did. It's a testament to the people, and then, of course, the technology, and IGEL has all of the above. So guys, thank you so much for taking the time. I know trying to get 4 people scheduled to do anything is difficult, and try to get 4 people as highly, in as high demand as you guys is just even better. So I truly appreciate you guys' time, both last week and, of course, to do this with me today. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you. That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Includes another successful episode, the 300th episode of DABCC Radio. I can't believe 300. I started this, I started it when my first child was born, believe it or not, in 2006. And I remember we were getting ready to have a baby, and I'm off buying cables for my podcast gear. So I think, I don't know how much the ex-wife, maybe keyword X, enjoyed that, but I started it back then, and we've been doing it ever since, and it's just a blast. And I wanted to do something special for the 300th, and I couldn't have picked a better topic than IGEL, and to bring the guys on that, that were kind enough to come on to the show. So I want to thank each and every one of them again. Steve and Jose and Pete and Christian, and what do I say? But thank you so much for taking the time to do this and for being part of the IGEL community. So, guys, definitely check out what these guys are doing. They're true thought leaders in every one of the companies. We have XenTegra with Pete that's just doing some amazing things. They're doing a lot of workshops and where they're just giving away free training. Definitely check out that. Accelera Solutions, which is one of the leaders over there in the East Coast, and these guys are just phenomenal with their managed services, and that's something I wanted to get into the podcast. Maybe I'll bring them back on and we'll do a round 2. Let's see what they say about that, and talk about managed services and what have you, and definitely check out what they're doing. And good old Steve Greenberg. Stevens, when I came to Citrix, I was excited about meeting a few Citrix employees, but I was also very excited about meeting a few of the people in the Citrix community in those days. And the community was not like it was today. It was a handful in the bigger picture of some crazy guys, and Steve, that thought that we had something great. And Steve was one of those guys, and he was one of the biggest contributors in the Thin List, which was the listserv back before there were blogs, and before DABCC, way before Brian Madden, before everyone else out there. And I just can't thank him enough for everything he's doing, and his response to Disrupt, his response to what IGEL is bringing to the table was priceless, because Steve gets it. And for him to get what IGEL's doing as quick as he did, 1, does not surprise me, but 2, is a testament to what the folks at IGEL's doing. And it answers that question that I get all the time is, Doug, why did you join IGEL? And like I said, the answer there is obvious, because we rock, because we have a better way to compute, because we can make your end users more productive and give them a better experience. And we can give IT one admin for all their devices across the globe. So, wow is all I could say to that. And if you don't believe me on that one, check out the Exotica video from Disrupt, and they talk about it in great detail. And she just did a phenomenal job. And it's all because of the power of IGEL. So, guys, thank you again. For those listening, like I said, DABCC Radio, this is our 300th episode. I can't believe I've recorded and edited 300 podcasts already. So here's to another 300. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I hope you enjoyed the previous 300. If you don't like it, let me know, and we'll try to make it better for you. If you do like it, send me an email. Every now and then I like to see that, And if you have any suggestions on how to make it better, or maybe somebody you would like on the show, send me an email. I'll invite them. It's that simple. So I love doing these podcasts because I get to listen to each and every one of these, and I usually listen to them twice because I have to edit it, right? So I've listened to 600 podcasts now, or 600 times, and I learn a lot from this. And what do I say? It's just been a true joy to be in this space, to be in the Citrix, the VMware, the Microsoft community for so long. It's been a true joy to, have that static on the podcast. Every now and then a little static is good, to where I ended up joining IGEL because I couldn't record the podcast with Jed, and instead he just hired me. And I never imagined that what I was walking into is what I found. I'm speechless, and for some guy that talks way too much, that's difficult. So what do I say? I'm tickled. I'm truly tickled. And please join the IGEL community. IGELcommunity.com will take you directly to our LinkedIn. Within the LinkedIn group, you can also find the Slack channel. Check out my it's a special invite the way Slack works, but you can check out my Twitter feed. You can email me, brown@igel.com, and I'll send you the invite to the Slack channel. We have over 3,500 messages in just a couple months, and but they're all nicely organized. It's not like 3,000 emails coming into your inbox where you go, what the heck is this, and I want this deleted, unsubscribe, right? It's 3,000 perfectly organized in the right channels, so that if you're looking for something on the UMS, boom, it's there. You know, if you're looking something on what's coming next, boom, it's there. If you have a suggestion, we have a channel for that. And I met with our CTO at Disrupt, and his first words out of his mouth before he even said hello, Doug, was, thank you so much for that recommendation, because one of the IGEL community members had a great product recommendations. I forwarded it over to our CTO. His first words out of his mouth was, thank you so much. How can we leverage this? How can we get more? How can we have better insights? Right. So IGEL is understanding what the community is doing, and we want to leverage this. We want to listen to you guys to help us be better, and help you be better too. And I couldn't be happier with what I'm seeing within the IGEL community. So please join, and I think you'll love it. You'll absolutely love it, because you're on the cusp of something big, as Steve said. And this is what we all felt last week, is that what we're doing is special. And to feel like that after 20-some years of doing IT work, I never thought I'd have it again. I feel like I did when I was 30 years old and I joined Citrix. And I walked into the Spectrum building, or, the HQ buildings in Fort Lauderdale, with just my whole body glowing. And that's how I felt last week. And that's how I feel every day. I don't like to go to bed, and I look forward to waking up so I can get back to work, because this is not work, guys. This is fun. So thank you all for listening to DABCC Radio. Thank you all for listening to this podcast. Please join the IGEL community. I also wrote a book. It's an instruction manual, screenshot by screenshot, on exactly how to install the IGEL suite. So if you want to try it and experience what we're talking about, this will walk you through it, screenshot. But you don't even have to read. You can just follow the pictures. But if you want to read it, you'll learn a lot. And I've put in links to all the expert docs, because IGEL has some great documentation in our eDocs platform, edocs.igel.com. But there's so much of it. It's so great. You don't know where to find it all, right? So we put it in within context within the book. So head on over to the IGEL community to download that book, or just igel.com/resources. And search for the white papers, and you'll find it within there. Or again, email me. I'm the most approachable person you ever meet. brown@igel.com, and I'll get you anything you need. It's that simple. Want a UD Pocket? I'll get you a UD Pocket. Whatever you need, send me an email, and your wishes are command. So on that note, guys, thank you again for listening to DABCC Radio.
CC?
DABC.
Say it again. DABCC.
DABC.
Can you say it again? DABCC.
DABC.
How about DABCC?
DABC.
DABCC.
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 DABCC.